Will Mithra lead the government as prime minister, or will he appoint minutes to lead the nobles? Actually, this was of no interest to Mithra. All Mithra really wanted to do was stay at home and paint as he pleases. With his noble lineage and the authority of the Duke family, Mithra was considered a born ruler. But that was a great misunderstanding. To begin with, Mithra's mother had good looks that made her beloved by the emperor. She had a vague resemblance to Velgrynd and was a strong woman. However, that was just on the outside. Her appearance might have been misleading, but she was in fact a quiet woman. Otherwise, when she gave birth to Rudra, she would have been the empress in her own right. It was a luxury allowed to a mother for a short time while Rudra grew up. She must have been quite an eccentric because she chose not to do so, and instead wished for her freedom. But then she was discovered by Duke Balsa Helmenard, Mithra's father. Balsa was a handsome man. So it is generally believed that Mithra's mother made a pass at him. Perhaps he was pushed aside by the queen's selfishness. But that's not true. Truthfully, it was Balsa who made the passive overture. They loved each other and Mithra was born. They're still in love today, but that's beside the point. I don't want to do politics, either. I'm tired of these suckers. But, to Mithra's dismay, he was surprisingly popular. On top of that, he's smart and has never been caught up in a conspiracy before. That's why Mithra has so many followers, and they sometimes gets ahead of themselves in things he does not want them to do. The worst was the downfall of the Count. That day, Mithra's shoulder bumped into the Count's. It was a careless accident, but the Count didn't apologize. Mithra was still in his early 20s, and the other man must have taken him for a fool. Maybe if he'd known Mithra was Duke's son, he might have reacted differently, but it was too late. I'm a Count. Don't you have any sense of propriety? He remembers watching the man calmly as he shouted at him. He was reminded of a story he had heard from a friend from another world, saying that this person might not have enough calcium to get so angry at such a thing. And then Mithra muttered, I'm in trouble. Mithra had not yet succeeded to the Duke's seat, and the current Count was in a superior position. However, he had been taught never to bow to a lower-ranked person, and he was wondering what to do in this situation. I'm in trouble. With that one sentence, it would develop into a really troublesome case. Mithra-sama is in trouble. How dare the Count embarrass Mithra-sama? Oh, dear. What a horrible mistake. And then Mithra's friends got into a frenzy. He didn't know where they had been hiding, but immediately after that, knights in black showed up in a hurry. And several of them restrained the Count. Only then did the panicked Count realize who Mithra was. But it was already too late. The captain bowed to Mithra and told him, please leave this person's disposal to us. Yes, I'll leave it to you. It was Mithra who had no choice but to say so. The next day's newspapers laid out the evidence of the Count's deceit. Whether it was a true crime or a fabricated one, Mithra would never know. All that is certain is that the Count had been arrested and his title was vacated. Needless to say, the fear of Mithra from those around him had grown. One bump on the shoulder can destroy an opponent. It was an incident that Mithra would never forget, as he realized he had the power to do just that. There had been similar incidents since then, and despite having no intention of doing so, Mithra had come to reign as a fearsome nobleman. Because of that, Mithra knows how to speak up for himself. That's why it became so quiet. And now this. According to the investigation of the best agents under the Dukes, it seems that Rudra's disappearance is certain. Whether he was dead or ran away doesn't matter. What mattered was that Velgrynd, the Empire's guardian dragon, had endorsed chosen hero, Masayuki, as the new emperor. It is assumed that the mysterious marshal is actually Scorched Dragon Velgrynd-sama. And it is likely that the man to whom she is attached to is the true successor of Rudra-sama's soul. That was what the report stated. Anyone with even a modicum of intelligence to think against this would understand that it's impossible. The Empire's succession to the throne is different from others, in that it doesn't place much importance on bloodlines. No, it may be considered important to the public, but to the truly noble ones, Rudra's soul was what was most important. The Duke Mithra naturally understood this. If things go wrong, not only will it destroy it will destroy everything. It's not safe for my men to be out of control. I must make up my mind and make my move. It was only natural for the wise Mithra to make this decision. Ideally, he would have wanted to stay out of politics and still keep his influence over the nobles. If his current title is secured in the future, then he wouldn't have to struggle financially. Even if he didn't force himself to participate in politics, he could still dream taking a stipend and living a life of painting. If this is the best thing that could happen, the next best thing would be to stay in the countryside. It would be better to manage the estate and live as a provincial lord. That would keep him busy for a bit, but still leave him time to paint. He wouldn't have to socialize too much, so it was a good place to start. The worst thing that could happen would be to touch Velgrynd's reverse scale. But that would be useless. Now is the time to prevent that from happening. Mithra decides to make a plan here. He wants to use his bad reputation and aim for his expulsion from the capital. If he acts arrogant, or rather, if he speaks as he normally would, his opponents would find Mithra troubling. Then after it's all over, he can just reason about what he's doing, pretend to be angry about it all, and leave. Negotiations would break down. But Mithra would realize his disadvantage and slip away from the capital to the provinces. That was the story he had planned to tell. And yet, minutes gave him two incomprehensible choices. Do you want to control the empire? Or do you want to work hand in hand with us? The answer is to refuse both. But that wouldn't be nice to say. Mithra ponders. The conversation of minutes continued. Even Tensura, a diplomat from the monster country, has joined them to prove their legitimacy. He knows this without being told. Knowing all the facts was the basis of the negotiations. Now, what can I do? Those are two choices, and I don't want to take either one. Being in politics in this country as it stands now is a straight line to death. If I work any more hours, I won't have time to paint or play with my beloved daughter. Mithra has a daughter whom he loves. She is only 3 years old. So cute. He also has a newborn son. What he was wondering about was his wife, who couldn't even look at Mithra after his son was born. The daughter of the Marquis family, whom Mithra had fallen in love with at first sight. A woman who came to live with him the day after he asked her to be his wife. She who had become a thoughtful wife has been a source of anxiety for Mithra as of late. Although she had been distant from the beginning of their marriage, he thought it couldn't be helped since they had just begun to get used to each other. Their daughter was born smoothly and they were expecting a boy. He was hoping they would slowly grow in love with each other at this rate. Yes. I have to say no, or I'd lose the time to talk to my wife. I don't care what happens to the empire, but I have to prevent my family from becoming unhappy. Mithra again made up his mind. He had planned to settle the matter amicably today, but a little turbulence was inevitable. And now he has his answer. It's ridiculous. Isn't this a usurpation of the throne? Sleep when you talk in your sleep. And, Tensura don't know, was it? What right do you have to meddle in the domestic affairs of our empire? It's true that the empire was defeated in a war. But by renouncing the airspace rights and making a treaty between nations, you have established peace between the empire and your country. Now that you've established diplomatic relations, are you saying that you have the right to interfere with the sovereignty of a friendly nation? It was a dangerous gamble. And yet, Mithra decided to take the plunge. He has trapped a demon lord's diplomat with formidable power. She is the demon lord's plenipotentiary abroad, and there is no denying the possibility of another war if she is offended. Mithra knows that she is the white primordial blanc. He knows that he is speaking outrageously against the great demon feared by the empire. Oh my, did I go too far in my imitation? Humph. I won't ask you to leave this room. I'm sure your master would like to know what the friendly country's future plans are. I appreciate your concern, sir. Come on, get angry. He wished that she would, but was so confused that she easily swept it along. I thought if I told them that, they would move to exclude me, but what do they think? He was wondering what he should do if she was enraged, but this calmness is confusing. Too much anger and he'd lose his life. Since he felt his life was about to be cut short even with that comment, it was unthinkable to make any more aggressive comments. What do I say? Do I want to take it another step further? That step was scary to no end. Therefore, he would turn the tables on them. I am the great Rudra's half-brother. Now that the life or death of my older half-brother is unknown, you would shamelessly ask for my help by choosing to welcome a new emperor, a man from nowhere named Masayuki. I have no idea what you're thinking. Mithra burst into a rush just a little more emphatically than usual. Depending on this reaction, the situation would be changed promptly. This is where the real fight begins. But unfortunately, Mithra's gamble turned out in the worst possible way. Oh my, do you disagree with my decision? If you think you're going to be overlooked just because you're related to Rudra, I'm going to have to tell you that you're too naive. Jeez, Velgrynd-sama. An unspeakable scream erupted from Mithra's heart. Mithra was so shocked that his soul felt as if it was going to slip out of his mouth. The odds were no longer stacked against him, but rather were completely against him. For some reason, Mithra felt refreshed that it was over for him. Maybe that's why he felt like it was the time to say what he wanted to say. Marshal Dono, no, it's Velgrynd-sama, the guardian dragon of the empire, isn't it? I was not told that you would be attending today's meeting, but it is a pleasure to meet you. First of all, the appeal is not that big a deal. He really wanted to run away, but was enlightened by the fact that it was impossible anyway. Oh, I'm sorry. I really don't think being the emperor is a party, either. But when I think about the people who live in the empire, I think it's best for me to be the emperor. Following Velgrynd, who opened the door without a sound and entered the room, Masayuki also appeared. For Mithra, it was completely unexpected. Judging from the situation, he had no choice but to realize that his fate was completely sealed. However, there was one thing that bothered him. Your Majesty doesn't seem quite confident about this. Do you think that makes you a better person than my half-brother? He asked with a sarcastic tone, but was half-truthful. If they're going to get rid of him anyway, he should have called their bluff more openly. Hahaha, I was just a student a while ago, you know. I never imagined that I would be an emperor, confident or not. You're pathetic. You think you can walk with supremacy just like that? I'm sorry. But I wasn't really planning on supremacy, you know. But, isn't it a strange thing to say? I hadn't noticed from the reactions of Minutes and Calgurio, but this doesn't seem to be consistent with the information my subordinates have been finding out. Mithra's own intelligence services had reported that the new emperor was a man of great strength. His popularity among the people was so great that even Demon Lord Rimuru, who had never given the Empire a second thought, looked up to him. And yet the smiling boy in front of him didn't really fit his image.